and welcome back to Rosie Sews Modern Vintage. I'm Rosie and it is really lovely to have you here. Now I've got a little bit of a different position here today because in view of us not being allowed to go outside, I have had to relinquish my sewing table where I normally always film my vlogs to a jigsaw. So instead I'm standing here in the living room and I'm going to share all that I've got to say to you today here. So I hope you don't mind. Now I wanted to talk about quick projects, ways to use our little fabric scraps and our stashes of pieces that aren't big enough to make a garment but would still be useful for something, all that kind of thing. And something that is quick and easy to make when you're feeling really bored but you don't want to take on a great big project. Maybe the kids are badgering you to go out in the garden and play, so you just want to do something small, something like that. I thought I could give you some ideas. So let's get started. Now you've probably seen me post on my Instagram page a few times about Sarah, who is a lovely lady who lives in London, and she runs a vintage fabric business called Olive Road London. Now she very kindly gave me some kits and some bits and pieces from her shop, and I have shown you them before, but I'll just refresh your memory. They came in these beautiful bags that she made, drawstring bags, with her lovely little tag on there saying, oh, wrong way around, saying Olive Road London. And inside she sent one of them that had lots of sewing patterns in, and one of them had a kit. So I'm going to show you the sewing patterns first. They're in this bag actually. And all of these patterns are designed to be used with vintage fabrics that she sells. Obviously when you buy vintage fabrics, even when you're buying it to sell on your website, you still very rarely get a whole bolt of fabric. It's normally what was once a curtain or a bedspread or a duvet cover, so there's a limited amount. So Sarah has created these patterns to use those small amounts of beautiful fabric to make them into something gorgeous. But it doesn't have to be vintage fabric. It can be anything that you have in your stash, in your scrap bag, that you would really like and that you would like to use up. So the first pattern is the Make a Betty tote bag pattern. Okay, so that's actually, if you can see there, it's got a pocket on it as well. And so that one is the first one, and Sarah sent me a kit as well, so I'm going to show you that in a minute. There's also the Mary zipper pouch. So this is a really simple make, but great if you've never put a zip in before, so that will talk you through how to do it. And Olivia kit bag. So although this is for something big like a PE kit, you could scale down the pattern and use it for something like that. And finally, put it down now, is the Millie Pinny, and that is the one that I've made to show you. Now what I really love about Sarah's patterns, this is just a silly little extra detail, is that all of her designs, oh, what am I doing? Showing you the backs, are all named after people who are her friends or family, and the Millie apron is named after her niece who loves to bake. I just think that is the cutest thing ever. So yes, Sarah gave me a kit and I'm going to show you what I made. It was a kit for the, now what's it called? I want to say the Betty bag. Yes, the Betty tote bag. And the kit contained enough of the webbing to make 2 handles and enough fabric to make the bag and a pocket. However, I had some really beautiful bark cloth napkins that I'd bought from a vintage seller years ago, and one of them just matched so perfectly that I thought I'm going to make my pocket out of that. So I did some pink top stitching, if you can see. Not the best top stitching ever, but we won't talk about that. Just as a contrast. And it was so easy to make, as you would imagine, but Sarah's instructions are really brilliant. They come with all the pattern pieces you need and all the details on how to make it. And even if you're an experienced sewer, sometimes it's just nice to have a really quick, easy make that kind of doesn't take a lot of brain power, something that you can just quickly whiz up and feel like you've achieved something at the end of a couple of hours. And if you're new to sewing, then this is also a brilliant starting project. So yes, that is the Betty tote bag. Now that kit, if you'd like to buy one from Sarah's site, is £15, but don't forget that there is a discount code ROSY15, ROSY15, and that will give you 15% off in her shop. So the next thing that I made was the Millie apron. So I didn't have a kit for this, so I was just making this from my own scraps, and I've made it out of this, and I really love the blue and the red together. It's my favourite colour combination, although I do also like turquoise and red as well. But yeah, I think it's just so happy, just so jolly and perfect for a little afternoon tea party, or if you like to wear an apron when you're doing work around the house, it's good so you can pop your tissues and your phone and all those kind of things in your pocket. I did actually add the pocket because that's not on the instructions, but it's very easy to do. But I also had enough scraps so that I added a top part, a bib, to the apron. So I've put some photographs up here of me looking silly, modelling them for you. But yeah, this was again a dead easy pattern to follow, really simple. If you're just doing the half apron, it is just 2 pattern pieces for the main apron and then your waist and side ties, so really, really simple. And again, just a joy to make, lots of fun and quick to do, so you feel like you've got something done at the end of the day. Now that's the lovely kits that Sarah sent me, but I also wanted to talk about other things that you can do with your fabric scraps, and also things that you can do if you want a quick project to pass the time. So a couple of the things that I think Sarah has got linked on her website just to videos on YouTube, but anyway, then I just thought I'd talk about it myself. So one of the things is covering buttons. Now you can buy, just find them off here, you can buy these little plastic buttons which come in 2 pieces. That's the first piece, you can see that, and then that is the second piece, and they slot together. That piece goes on the back and you push that right in. So the idea is that you cut a piece of fabric and you do a running stitch around the outside, pull it tight and all the fabric disappears into there, and then you use this as like a little cover to finish it off. I've got one finished here. So that was using some scraps of Liberty fabric. That's a black button blank, but that shows you what it's like. And I think they are so gorgeous, so easy to make. Literally the tiniest scraps can be used, because you can get these button blanks even down to this size, so very, very small. And you know, if you sew them onto a card, what a pretty present for somebody. Or even if you've only got enough scraps for one button, that's still like a lovely finishing touch, maybe on the back of a skirt waistband or at the top of a dress or something like that. So that's a really nice thing to do. Sarah uses the teeniest little scraps to use on her tags, on her kits, or her vintage sewing kits, and I think this is brilliant. I'm going to be doing this now when I send presents. I'm going to always use teeny little strips of fabric as my, almost like my string. And talking about string brings me to something else. Now this might look a bit weird, but I've done this before on a bigger scale and it looks absolutely fab. So I've taken some of the viscose that I had left over, the Lady McElroy viscose, just all the little scraps that were of no use, and I've plaited it into this what looks very rough braid. But I actually did this once with old t-shirts and turned it into a bath mat, but unfortunately I don't have that anymore, so I can't show you. But if you roll your lovely string, there's loads of tutorials on how to do this, and I'll link a couple below. And as you're going, you can just either glue as you roll or do little stitches as you roll. You create a big circle. Now I did do a bath mat, but obviously I had a lot more time on my hands and loads of old t-shirts, so I was able to do it, and it didn't take up too much time because I just worked at it, half an hour here and there, and eventually I made my big bath mat. But as you can see, even if you use a little piece of this raggedy string, it's already creating something that would be lovely as like a coaster, or you could maybe sew that into some kind of raggedy brooch. So there's loads of things you can do with this, or even you can use it, as garden twine. All sorts of things you can do with it, and that's really good fun to just sit while you're watching the telly or something, plaiting it together and creating your lovely string. What else? Oh yes, when I was making this dress, this is the Blitz dress by Sew La Di Da, I had some of the fabric left over, which was gifted to me by Minerva Crafts, and so I made myself a headscarf. Now I didn't have enough to do a big square headscarf, so I just cut a rectangle that I knew would fit around my head, and then I tapered it at the edges, and then I literally just sewed a hem either on both sides of the long rectangle, and Bob's your uncle, a lovely headscarf. I'm pretty chuffed with that, so I'm going to be doing that with a lot more of my fabric scraps in the future, because it's always nice to have headscarves that match your outfit. Yes, now this is something that I was really excited to learn to make. Now there are loads of videos again on YouTube, but I'm going to insert one here in a second to make your own bias binding. Now it's very cheap and easy to get hold of polycotton bias binding in various colours to suit your finished project, but to buy anything that's a little bit more unusual than that is fairly difficult, but also expensive. And I have got, again, this is my Lady McElroy Stalking Beauty viscose offcuts. I mean, this is absolutely gorgeous bias binding, isn't it? There's a lady called Karen who has a YouTube channel called So Little Time, and she has started to, when she lines a skirt, she finishes it with a bias binding hem. And it's just so beautiful to finish her garments like that. They always look so gorgeous, and it just again takes your handmade clothing to that new level. And so I would really like to start doing that, and this is the perfect example of how I'm going to do it. It's so easy to make. I'm going to insert a video here now showing you exactly how to do it, but I just wanted to show you the finished article first. So I'm going to be using some scraps of this beautiful Lady McElroy viscose that I have left over from my Bonnie dress, and as you know, I've been raving about this fabric because I just love it so much, and with all of these beautiful illustrations on it, it just seems such a shame to just put this in the scrap bag. So I've cut out some pieces that are all, oh, that one's a bit wider actually, but they're all about 2 inches wide, and I'm going to turn them into some bias binding. Now ideally you would be sewing each piece to the next piece, but I'm just going to show you on this small piece first of all, just so that you can see how I do it. So the first thing you need to do is to have your iron set to sort of a medium to low heat, but with steam. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to turn our fabric over, and we're going to be putting those folds in like you see on a piece of bias binding. Okay, so we'll do the very first piece over here. I'm going to get my iron, and I'm going to fold just into the middle and just steam that for a few seconds. Okay, and then I'm going to do the other piece this side. You don't need to do a very long section because we're going to do something else in a minute to hold that in place. So steaming that together, sorry, just knocked the camera. Now you need to get yourself a nice long pin, okay, and you're going to bring the pin up out of your ironing board cover and then across the width of the bias binding that you want, and then back down into the ironing board cover. Okay, and that means that then you can pull it through, and as you pull it through you can iron it. So I'm going to do that now. And then when you get a little bit that's not quite sitting straight, you can just pull it together. And obviously this isn't an exact science, so you can fiddle around really, you know, as much as you like to just get it sitting absolutely straight. It's quite tricky here to do it with the camera on as well, because normally I'd be taking quite a long time over this. But as you can see, just by pulling it through and then ironing it, we're getting some beautiful bias binding. And the final thing that I was going to talk about when it came to sewing scraps is a bit of a bigger project, and that is the Closet Case Patterns poof cushion. Poof, I don't know how to say it. And the idea of the cushion is that you obviously keep some scraps that you can sew together. Here's a picture of it, by the way, to make the actual buffet, but also the suggested filling for it is fabric scraps. So I've been collecting mine in this very glamorous black bag, and I have this behind the sofa so it doesn't get in anybody's way, it's not taking up important space in any of my cupboards, and every time I finish a project I just put all my scraps in here. So I've got everything from jersey, cotton, viscose, velvet, everything. It's all stashed in here, and once I have enough I am going to make one of those beautiful buffets. There's so many. If you search the hashtag, I'll put it down here because I can't remember, I think it's like hashtag closet case poof or something, you'll see some amazing ones that people have made. That's on Instagram. So yes, I'm definitely saving up, as it were, saving up my scraps so that I can make a beautiful version for my own home. So that's all from me today. Thank you ever so much for joining me in this unusual setting today. I hope you've enjoyed talking a little bit about fabric scraps and quick projects to do to beat the boredom. If you've got any ideas or suggestions that I haven't mentioned, would love to hear about them. Please do put them in the comments box below, and I'm sure other people will enjoy reading them too. And also just stay safe, guys. We don't need to panic. It's really easy to get anxious at this moment because of all of the things that are happening outside our homes, but please stay calm. We're all here for each other. Anybody's free to message me if you're feeling lonely or worried. Sending lots of love to everybody, and I'll see you soon. Bye.